Well, this next story will leave you wondering, how could they do that? The I-Team has confirmed that state employees have been using gravestones from a military veterans cemetery to build their own backyard patio. I-Team reporter Jonathan Humbert actually confronted the homeowners. And Jonathan, this is a state veterans home worker, her husband. So it's what, a maintenance worker and a grave digger, essentially?
Absolutely. And they say that they have done nothing wrong. They don't think anything's wrong in all of this. And there are also no rules stopping them from taking 77 gravestones from that veterans cemetery, many of them still engraved with the names of the fallen. In their mind, there was nothing to stop them from turning those stones into a patio. It is the ultimate honor, a final way to say thank you for giving so much. The Boulder City Veterans Cemetery. Each grave marked with a memorial, 130 pounds of granite. Only now, not too far from the cemetery in a Boulder City neighborhood, 77 of those gravestones are here. Not a memorial, but a backyard patio.
It's appalling. The evidence is right there.
With inside information and a fear of retribution, George came forward to blow the whistle to stop this from ever happening again.
Is it ethically appropriate for two state employees to help themselves to gravestones?
Those employees are Tammy and Kevin Janicki. Tammy works in the veterans home. Her husband, Kevin, actually works at the cemetery where the stones should be. The I-Team wanted to know if the allegations were true.
Hello.
Tammy Janicki wouldn't say yes.
To our knowledge, we have not done anything wrong.
And she wouldn't say no.
Are they gravestones from the cemetery back there?
And that would, I don't...
Do they have engravings on them right now?
I'm not even saying that we have them. You need to talk with Carol.
It would appear that the possibility is very, very strong that there are gravestones.
Carol Turner is one of Tammy Janicki's bosses in the State Office of Veterans Services. She confirms to the I-Team that these are, in fact, stones from the cemetery. And now with the word out, an investigation is underway.
We are taking this very, very seriously, and we will leave no stone unturned.
When the spouse of one of these veterans passes, husband and wife can be buried together. That means a new stone for both names. Turner never expected anyone to take the old stones home for personal use.
Reasonable, prudent judgment and common sense should prevail in situations.
Turner has to lean on the rules for proper disposal for old stones. The only problem?
The Nevada Office of Veterans Services does not have a formal policy in place.
That's why the Janickis feel the stones were up for grabs.
Everything that we've done has been within the policies that have been explained to us.
The federal government sees it differently. The Veterans Affairs Department in Washington tells the I-Team the gravestones are always government property and that they cannot be used for any purpose other than to mark the grave of a veteran. Turner says the Janickis' actions go against her department's mission.
Is to serve Nevada veterans in life and to memorialize them in death.
So it isn't, in your mind, disrespectful?
We would never do anything to disrespect anyone.
Like an American flag, these weighty memorials must have an honorable destruction, ensuring that none of them can ever be seen in the wrong light, not from the sky or from a backyard. Now, the State Veterans Office says the Janickis may face sanctions and disciplinary action for all of this. They will return each and every one of those stones.
Damaging new information today in a story first exposed by the I-Team. The Attorney General's office is now investigating 2 state employees for taking home 77 gravestones from the Southern Nevada Veterans Cemetery. Those employees admitted they turned the stones into a patio. I-Team reporter Jonathan Humbert first uncovered this story last week, and now things are moving quickly.
Absolutely. The internal investigation by the State Veterans Department now has some very powerful company. The Attorney General's office is trying to decide if taking those stones is considered a crime. With that question looming, now Tammy and Kevin Janicki are taking the stones back where they belong. The view from above said it all last Wednesday. 77 gravestones, memorials of the heroes who gave so much, now turned, twisted into a different form. A patio.
We haven't broken any policies.
The people behind the patio are Tammy and Kevin Janicki. She is spokesperson for the state veterans home. He actually works at the cemetery. The Jennekes took home stones meant for destruction. Normally, spouses can be buried together, and that requires replacing the current headstone. Those old headstones ended up here. Now, with the plan exposed, the Jennekes had to pull the stones up. They blocked a view of any possible inscriptions and set out to return them.
We have to step back and say, how have we failed?
Carol Turner is the regional boss for the Veterans Department. Turner says the patio is a mistake that never should have happened.
Our veterans deserve respectful, peaceful, final resting place.
Turner says the actions of the Jennekes should not reflect on her entire agency and says this was an isolated case.
This does not define who we are. We're much better than this.
Yet back at the cemetery, new proof the Jennekes still have supporters. While returning a load of stones, Kevin Jenneke hid from our cameras at every opportunity, even driving away at one point with the tailgate still down. Later, from a different angle, Jenneke motions for a co-worker to move a state truck, moving it all in an effort to block our view. Not once, but twice.
Hi, Mom.
Jenneke eventually finishes the drop-off and heads out, knowing the investigation has expanded. Turner's internal inquiry promises results.
At the conclusion of our investigation, we will, as appropriate, take sanctions against the Jennekes and whomever, quite frankly.
A decision still to come, just the consequences of what was and what should be. Now again, the state has no policy on how the old stones should be destroyed, but the federal government does. The stones should be ground down and broken apart so they cannot be recognized. The most honorable option available, they say. While the agencies continue their investigations and possible sanctions, the Veterans Department is still finalizing and crafting state rules to keep this from happening again. The Attorney General's office had no other comment today on its investigation other than to say that they are now looking into the case.
Some breaking news to tell you about in an I-Team report about state employees using veterans' gravestones for their personal home patio. Today, 2 new state policies and sanctions against the people behind the plan. I-Team reporter Jonathan Humber broke this story and joins us now with what appears to be a conclusion. Jonathan.
Yeah, and one the Nevada State Veterans Department wishes would go away, Paula. Tammy and Kevin Jenneke, both employees of the Veterans Department, were accused of taking home 77 gravestones meant for disposal. Now, just a half hour ago, we received word the state modified its disposal policies for those gravestones. The Jennekes will also face punishment for their actions, all as a result of our investigation. Here's the policy changes. First, the state will now have specific staff to handle inventory of some of those excessive stones. The state had no rule on what should happen to those stones. Now someone will have control and proper records. Second, the state created new rules for honorable destruction of those gravestones. Again, the 77 of them were taken from the Boulder City Cemetery. They were supposed to be destroyed under federal guidelines, but the state had no rule on what to do until today. Now there will be no confusion anymore over what should be done. Now, as for the Jennekes' punishment, they have been sanctioned, but the state veterans office had no specifics on what they face. That department will continue to work with the Attorney General's office on any possible criminal charges from this case. The veterans office just wants to put this in the past, and now they can with rules in place.